Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Dad Project. Appreciate you taking the time out of your week to have a listen to this little podcast that I have going on here. Before I get into it, as always, I need to ask you a few questions. Whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on, whether it be Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you have found us, please make sure you are subscribed. By you subscribing, it makes us jump up in those rankings, which helps us get out to more people. So the growth that I have seen from this podcast over the last couple of years has been amazing. So thank you to those of you who have listened long term. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. I hope you find some value out of what we do here. And if you do, please make sure that you share it around with your friends or with anybody who you think might also be able to draw some value out of what it is that I am doing here. So this week, last episode, I spoke about a concept that I kind of use in my life, which is move every day, right? Which is about, so move every day for me, just to recap quickly, you can go back and listen to that episode, but move every day is something that I guess a bit of a mantra that I try and adhere to every day, which is just getting out and doing some form of structured movement each day. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a training session. That means going for a walk. That means just going for, maybe it's going out and playing with the kids, but it's making a concerted effort to get myself active and get myself moving every single day. Now, it doesn't happen every day. But it happens the vast majority of days. Now, for me, I'm in a very privileged position. For me personally, I've obviously, as you can see behind me, if you're watching this on video, because we do have a video version of this on YouTube, just tie that in there. But you see, I've got a home gym, right? So I can come out and I can do a training session whenever I want. And it's a very well equipped home gym. I've got a rower, I've got a bike, like I've got a lot of stuff that I can use here. So for me, I'm in a very privileged position where I've got really immediate access to stuff if I want to do that. And I understand that not everybody has that. But for some of the people I coach, what it's more about, so for example, our move everyday premise that we're trying to work towards with a lot of them would be more structured around potentially doing, say, 3 training sessions a week, and then just going out and doing a 30-minute to an hour walk each week. Or for those of them that like running or like to do something like that, maybe they do 3 gym sessions a week, 2 runs a week, and then they're just doing some walks. And the good thing about the walks, and and not only last week, but on a lot of previous episodes, I've spoken about how walking is such a good entry level thing for anyone to add into their life. If you are looking to make a change around your physical health and you tell yourself that you struggle to find the time, which a lot of us as fathers, as busy business owners, things like that, can be quite time poor. So in the early stages, when you're trying to implement something new, it can feel like you don't have the time to do it. Like it's 100% a feeling that's there. Now, do I believe that the time's not there? No. Again, a topic that I've covered off on a lot of my older podcasts is it is more about prioritizing the time. And there are going to be things that are going to be a higher priority than movement for us, especially around family and providing, so on and so forth. But if you feel like you don't have the time and you're struggling to maybe go to somewhere else to train, so going to the gym or whatever the case might be, then walking can be a really good starting point. Like trying to get a 30-minute to an hour walk. One, it's low intensity. So it's a very, very low barrier for entry. Two, you don't need anything. Like you can just go. And there are other benefits within that, and I won't spend a lot of time on that because I have done a specific episode on walking, and why there is so many benefits to it when you are first starting out. But I also think there's a big element to that as well too. Like you can have some time alone with your thoughts. The flip side of that is if you don't want to do it alone, you can also use it as good quality time with your kids and your family. So one thing, as my son has started to get a little bit older, he has started to want to come on my morning walks with me, which is something that him and I are starting to do together. We did it together when he was younger, when I could strap him to my chest, but there's been a period where he's gotten a little bit older, but now he's starting to get to that point where he can kind of come with me, and it's something that we can do together, or it's something that we can do as a family. So there are a lot of little things with that where you can kind of tick a few boxes for yourself if you are time poor, around ticking that box for your movement each day and then spending some time with your family, or some time for yourself to spend some time alone with your thoughts. And the longer I've kind of gone down this, or the older I've got, let's say the older I've got, because life is self-development, right? Like, your journey as a human being is something that is ever evolving and ever changing. And even with this episode, I did an episode on a similar concept to this, where I spoke about some habits or some things that I try and do each day around my life to kind of help with my personal and mental health, and that aren't hacks. And this is the evolution of that about 18 months later, right? Like, there are certain things within that which have stayed the same, but there are also things that have changed as I've gotten new information and I've become a different person. Things have changed. But with the walk has been one thing that I've tried to keep consistent. There has been periods in my life where I have not been able to be as consistent with it as what I would have liked, but that has been something that has allowed me to keep that mantra of moving every day, but being able to go on that walk, especially by myself, be alone with my thoughts for a little bit, allows me to sometimes unpack some of that mental baggage. And I think it's important for us as men to address our own thoughts and the way we're feeling. And some of us don't have the tools to do that by ourselves. And if you feel like it's too overwhelming, it's probably not a great thing for you to be doing. If you're at that point, you potentially need to go and talk to somebody and talk to a professional who can help you do that by yourself. But for me, especially over the last 12 months, going for that walk and allowing myself just to be alone with my thoughts in a busy world has been very, very helpful. So that move every day mantra for me is something that I obviously try and do most days. Some days I don't get it in because there's other things that have come up that take priority over the top of it. But for the most part, I'm lucky enough with the circumstances that I have that I'm able to move every day, whether it be a jiu-jitsu session, whether it be a training session in the home gym, whether it be going for a walk. And that walk for me, and that walk in my mind, and for a lot of people I've worked with, is such a good entry point to try and tick that box every single day of the week. And then also there are a bunch of other inherent benefits that can be tied into that. Now, some other things that I try and do each day. Now, this is probably one of the biggest ones that I'm making a concerted effort to do, and it's actually getting some direct sunlight. Now, this isn't meant to be like some Liver King primal shit that I'm meant to do. Like I try and do. I've actually noticed a difference in my ability to get to sleep at night and the quality of the sleep that I get by making a concerted effort in the morning to get 15 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight. And that means, so I actually generally tie that into my walk. So with my walk, I will not wear sunglasses. I will just go for a walk and try and have as much skin exposed as I can. I don't do it shirtless. You know, as I said, it's not trying to be some primal deal with it. It's just part of, I have noticed that by me doing that and me actually using my sunglasses less earlier in the morning, it has actually helped later on in the day at night with the quality of sleep and my ability to get to sleep. And that is something that I have made a concerted effort to add in over the last 12 months. The good thing is trying to get that 15 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight in the morning, like on the face and through your eyes, helps set that circadian rhythm so that then later on, when it is time to go to sleep, you can, like, your body will naturally try and adapt to going to sleep, so winding down. There is also, and I was reading a little bit more about this during the week, but there is also a second part to that where actually getting some direct sunlight a bit later in the afternoon can almost double down on that whole concept and help really set you up for success when it comes to sleep. Because to tie this into kind of everything, the good thing is about this is if you're doing some form of movement in the morning, you can really tie the sunlight thing into that. Now, I don't know whether I would recommend doing it if you're driving somewhere, especially if, I wear contact lenses, so I know when I'm driving, if the sun is bright or it's direct like sunlight, I kind of need sunglasses because the road glare and the glare that comes up with it is something that can make it hard to drive. So there's obviously a safety concern there. But going for a walk, there's not as much of a safety concern, especially around where we live. There's a lot of good parks and tracks that I can take where obviously there's no cars and things that I need to worry about. But getting that direct sunlight in the morning has definitely helped me. And the thing is, it then ties into my move every day where I can just do that while I'm getting my walk. But 15 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight then ties into and I've found a major difference in the sleep quality that I've been getting and my ability to get to sleep. And sleep, if anything, can be that number one thing that needs to be addressed around trying to improve your overall health and well-being. And especially as a parent, as a dad, sleep is at a premium. Like you can only get the quality of sleep you can get based off what your children are allowing you to get. So when you have the opportunity to sleep really well, you need to take it. And I have also done an episode on sleep. So setting yourself up over the course of the day to optimize the sleep during those periods where you are able to get a good solid 6 to 8 hours of sleep by getting that 15 to 30 minutes of sunlight in the morning, sleeping in more of a blacked out room, no technology 30 minutes prior to going to sleep. All these things can help set you up so that when you do have the opportunity to get good quality sleep, you're able to. Okay. But that 15 to 30 minutes of sunlight, direct sunlight, has really been something that has really, really made a difference for me around the quality of sleep and my ability to get to sleep at night, which then feeds into my recovery. It feeds in my ability to train and do more. And then it sets my mood for the day as well too. I have noticed on the days where I get that direct sunlight, an improvement in my mood, like the way I feel a little bit more optimistic about the day. Now, I think the movement ties into that as well, but it's we're not hitting this from just one angle. It is all encompassing. So that's the second thing. So those first two things that I try and get in each day to kind of help with my mindset, my motivation, and tick those boxes for myself is the direct sunlight and then the movement as well. So moving every day. And then the last thing, and this is something I've spoken about quite a bit, is a journal. And the way I journal has evolved a little bit over time as I've become more comfortable with it, because it was something that when I first started doing it, I was not comfortable with it at all. It was such a big stretch for me. I thought the idea of doing it was complete garbage, and it shouldn't have, I thought it was, this foo-foo hippie type stuff that I didn't need to do. But when I started doing it consistently, I noticed a difference. I noticed a difference in my focus and in my productivity. And I also noticed a difference in my mindset. There has been times in my life where I have struggled with some pretty deep and dark thoughts. And it's been being able to put those thoughts on paper has been really helpful for me. And this is where my journaling has evolved, right? The journaling for me started off as me just doing like a gratitude journal in the morning. So doing 3 things that I'm grateful for each morning. And that definitely helped. And that was a good starting point, because the way I had it explained to me when somebody was showing me how to do it was, you do 3 things you're grateful for, right? But you don't have to overthink it. Like, what are the first three things that come to your mind in the morning that you're grateful for? Obviously, my family was a big thing that kept popping up, but then that evolved into being a little bit more specific about like those things that you're grateful for. Like, what about your family are you grateful for today? What about your ability to move? Like, what about your life are you grateful for today? And doing those three things every day, that's how it started out, and that's how it helped. And then I elaborated into being a little bit more specific. And instead of just writing, say, one sentence on each thing, I started to write some more. And then I started to do a little bit of digging on gratitude and how gratitude works. And with gratitude, we actually, it's one thing to give it, but to receive it as a human being, that's where we get that's where our tires get pumped up the most, right? So, but also to like actually physically giving it to other people. So what I would do is I'd write down the three things I'm grateful for. And then if a person come up, I would then just send them a message and say, hey, thanks for being part of my life. Like, thanks for everything you do, like, and show some gratitude towards them. Right. And so I was actually giving it to the person rather than just writing it down on paper. And then I continued journaling on the days that I could. Don't get me wrong. It was something that I would endeavor to do every day, but there would be some weeks where I wouldn't do it at all. Okay. But for the most part, I would always just get back to it. Right. There would be other weeks where I'd only do it 2 or 3 days. And there'd be some weeks where I'd be super consistent and I'd be able to get the 7 days meticulously for a good run. And then something had come up and I'd stop. So I'm not perfect with this stuff, and nobody is. Anybody who puts out that facade on social media that they're perfect with all of this stuff I'm talking about, this is something I endeavor to do every day. Some days it doesn't fall into place. But the idea with some of these pillars and setting these marks up for myself is if I miss out, I try and get back to it, back to the journaling, right? And how it's evolved over time and where I'm at right now. So with the gratitude, I continued to do that. I continued to elaborate on it, and I continued to write down 3 things that I was grateful for. And then I started to give gratitude out. And then I continued to write down those 3 things I was grateful for. But my journaling then evolved into me actually putting my feelings on paper and writing down how I was feeling for the day, any thoughts that had come up, even things as much as business plans, thoughts I was trying to process. Like, I started to actually write that out. And that is where I actually found it stepped up to a next level for me. I didn't have a plan or a structure with how I was writing. I was just basically taking what was in my head and writing it down on the page. And that for me has been a way of getting out some angst and anxiety and actually unpacking those thoughts. And there's some days where I will write a page. There is some days where I will only write a sentence, but going in and just trying to unpack that anything that every morning or sometimes at nighttime. Nighttime, I think when I'm doing that activity is good because it allows me to unpack stuff for the day. But it's something that I actually find more time for in the morning, if that makes sense. So it's potentially something that as I get into this and I decide to create more time, maybe I do it in the morning and the afternoon. But for now, I'm trying to do it once a day. But that process that I'm going through where I'm actually taking my thoughts, putting them on paper, has been really, really helpful for me, and endeavoring to do that every day, still doing the gratitude journal where I'm writing down what I'm grateful for, but being mindful that not only do I want to put that on paper, I actually want to let other people know what I am thankful for and that I appreciate them. And then receiving that back in a way has really been something that has been a great journey for me, and how the way I journal has evolved over time. So it's yeah, these are 3 things that I try and look to do each day, right? So just to recap, 15 to 30 minutes of like direct sunlight in the morning. You can do it in the afternoon as well. There's some stuff that I've read where doing it morning and afternoon is definitely worth a look, but you definitely want to try and do it in the morning. The second thing is to move every day. It can be done. It can be done with it can be done when you need to do it, right? I like to do it in the morning because I get it done, and it means as things come up later in the day, it doesn't matter. I've got it done for the day. But it doesn't have to be a training session. Walking is a very, very good place to start. And then the last thing is I try and journal. So right now, my journaling process is I still do my gratitude journal, which is a good place for everybody to start. I believe if you're not doing it and it's something that has kind of been on your radar, start off with 3 things that you're grateful for. But now it has kind of evolved into a little bit more of a diary for myself, and where I'm using that time to try and take anything I'm thinking out of my head and put it down on paper in the morning before I get started. So they're the 3 things that I try and do most days to kind of help with my overall health. But probably most importantly, my mental health. It's not going to work for everybody. There is no one size fits all when it comes to this. The answer of, if somebody asks me a question, the answer of it depends is definitely something that needs to be highlighted more. Like, there are no absolutes when it comes to your health, your well-being, your mental health, or whatever. Like, it is always context specific, which is the way I coach and the way I coach around physical fitness, around training, because when we're talking about that, injuries matter, your access to resources matter, your time matters. Like, all these things need to be factored in when we're thinking of a plan. So if you need help with a plan around that stuff, obviously reach out. That's my area of expertise. You can book in a time to have a chat with me below. If you've gotten through to the end of this 20 minutes, I appreciate you. Hopefully you can take something out of there which is usable for yourself, that maybe you're not doing now. Try it for 6 to 12 weeks and see if you see a result from it. Let me know. Let me know if you try any of that stuff, if you've seen a benefit from it. And that is it for this week. I will see you all next week. Goodbye.